This is Nate again. I'm here with my sister Smay, and we intend to be recording a small supplement discussion on the Law of One, as we've had several of our friends want a bit more detail on that. And even though neither of us is particularly an expert on this subject, it's fortunately a very simple series of ideas that we can present to you today. So where would you like to start, Smay?
Yeah, it's complicatedly simple. A friend of mine asked if we could talk about the spiritual concept of oneness versus separation.
Okay.
Or the metaphysics of interconnection was her wording. And that directly correlates to the Law of One. The Law of One, to me, is interconnectedness, and separateness is ego.
That would be one way to see it. Sure, absolutely. And I would even go beyond that to say it's not just ego, which is our lens in density 1 or dimension 1, 2, and 3 to perceive things, but it's about choosing how we view the world. How do I want to look at the world? Well, I think it's in my best interest to accept that if the world is bigger than I think of it, that I want to adopt a paradigm and a set of ideas that supports that and harmonizes with that, rather than having a debate about whether or not God exists, which is where most people are lying with that at a very basic level. So before we get into the details of it, which I only have a few things that are directly translated that I can read for you. The first that I came across that I found pretty relevant is the definition of a law. And the first definition in the dictionary is a binding custom or practice of a community. Very, very simple.
Yeah.
So it takes the element of law with punishment being pulled out of it.
Right.
This is a group of ideas of how to think about the universe.
Right. It takes the authoritarian aspect down of it a little.
And here's a couple of direct translations. I think we've covered this earlier in our Chelonic Science introduction and the questions for discernment. Just briefly, I do believe they're worth repeating, is that the Law of One acknowledges the value, interconnection, and interdependence of all components of reality and the living God source or spirit alive within all things. This is a perspective of interdependent universal brotherhood and co-creative evolution practiced by advanced races who understand the interconnections between all life forms and reality systems. So in my mind, that's very self-explanatory, and even though there is a series of books which we discussed before, the Law of One books. I can't remember the name of the authors. Elkins, I believe. But most people are aware of this concept from those series of channeled books in the early 80s, which are good resources, in my opinion. My exposure to it and my understanding is through the Chelonic Science paradigm, and in thousands of pages of what I've seen in translations, I could only find maybe 3 or 4 that even referenced the Law of One, which is encouraging to me because the implication from Guardians is that they believe the idea is so simple it does not need curriculum.
Yeah.
It does not need to be an institutionalized idea. That's the very point, is that it's simple.
Yeah,
right?
They're just like, hey, we're all connected. Let's move on.
As a being, you are directly manifest from the unity of consciousness that is God, or Source. The divine design of the Creator is imbued within the created.
This brings me back to the universe being an expression of a single unified field. So we're all just a different flavor of awareness.
Yes.
The universe expressing itself. So we feel separate because we don't all look the same, right? But we are all just a different type of expression of the universe.
And we are co-creating, we are active co-creative participants in the creation of the universe we're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
Beautiful,
it.
Beautiful, huh?
Yeah, I had this analogy I was telling my friend the other day that, say, we walk into a Baskin-Robbins or any ice cream shop, really, and you're like, oh, all these flavors, they're all so different, but then you, realize it's all ice cream.
Yeah.
Like, we're all ice cream,
right,
just
yeah.
like a different flavor, but it's all the same, ingredients and comes from the same source, the same unified source.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I think that just in general, many of our challenges as human beings is that everything appears so different. And that's the illusion that we've been tricked into accepting for a very long period of time, is that that person looks different from me, therefore they're not the same, or therefore they might be an enemy. Therefore they might be someone that I don't treat as myself, as one with. So that's one of the follies of having, like your friend Sarah said, a perception of individuation and separate reality. That is a choice for us to perceive. These are only recommendations for how to look at the world. And my choice to accept it as real, it changes the way I experience things. In fact, that reminds me that our sister Effie was recently sharing with us the idea of the definition of a miracle is a change in perspective.
Yeah, that's so good.
And it makes the definition of a miracle, which is something usually very intangible, or to describe something that's magic.
Or magical, yeah.
Right? Something happened. It's usually good, though. No one says, oh, my car burned last night. That was a miracle.
Yeah.
But if something good happens and they didn't expect it, especially it comes through the kindness of another stranger, the kindness of another creator, demonstrating their value for you, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
And it makes the definition of it very tangible in the way where I can create my own miracle if I understand any day what that word means, because I can choose to change my perspective anytime I want.
It's so difficult, though, because a lot of us are stuck in that, oh, this is the way it is. This is what I'm caught doing, kind of this. It's like the victim position where things happen to you and you have no control over your circumstances, your situation, your life, when really it's just this change in perspective, taking action. You get to choose what you think. You get to choose if you're going to fret over something or not. So powerful. There was this is a funny example of seeing a miracle or seeing something as magical and your perspective. So I'm making I'm making this art off of like dead.
Oh, the palm fronds.
Yeah, dead palm frond cloth that, it's just mulch, really. It turns into dirt. But I found this tree that has these primo, like really big pieces of this cloth bark. And I thought it was like, it's a miracle. This tree has what I need in this moment right now, and there's a surplus of it. And I was just like, I was giddy and giggling and like pulling it off, and like probably looked crazy, just like packing all this.
Where to the average
crap
person,
into my car.
a palm frond laying on the beach is literally beach trash in their mind.
Yeah, it's just like it's just like
that's a beautiful perspective. I like it.
Something dead.
Here's another little quote here that I like that almost answers this as well. Creation is a projected reality. The manifest creation of the universe is a projected reality. Creation comes through us, and its consequences come at us. So what we perceive as external is the consequences of our creative choices.
So this is the internal and the external just really being the same in a
which
projection
are the
of
two
itself.
polarizations of a particle unit experiencing themselves as separate, magnetic and electric. Right?
I have this phrase, this concept from a book that I'm reading is, if we are the universe expressing itself, we are the canvas, the paint, and the artist all at the same time.
Yeah.
We are the chicken.
I love it.
We're the chicken and the egg. We're the mother and the child simultaneously. Giving birth to ourselves and then transforming, in whatever.
And connected to our entire ancestral history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're the artist, and we are the substrate, the canvas, whatever we're creating on. It's like we're all together.
Wow, I love it. I wanted to find some other references to this rather than relying on the channeled Law of One books. I personally don't really resource those and reference them a lot myself. I think I read the first one maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah, I got through a couple chapters of the first or second one. And it To me, it was kind of like the Ra, who is basically a collection of beings.
Yeah, well, it's a consciousness
guardians,
collective.
A consciousness collective speaking through, and the questions that were being asked to the being, it felt like they were just saying the same thing over and over. Like, no, yeah, we're all connected, right? And they're like, but what about Iran? And whatever question that they had was, so it was so specific, but it was like not getting the point. Anyway, I didn't finish the series, so I can't really speak and have much of an opinion on
and this
that,
is also nearly 40 years ago that this work was done.
Yeah.
Well, actually, over 40 years now. And at the time, the level of consciousness that the practitioners or the questioner, the husband, he was coming from a lower level of consciousness. So much like when a child asks about something really abstract, like when your son asked, what's it like to grow up one day at the beach? And I had no idea. I didn't know what to tell him. But he was asking for what it meant to him. So what it meant to me is like, well, I know a bit more. I've been around longer, so I make fewer mistakes because I've already made them. But pretty much, I still feel like I'm 6, like you are.
His mind's blown.
Yeah, and he just nodded and said, "Okay," and then did a cartwheel down to the water. That's all he needed. So, the idea of the law of one itself is presented in Keylonic science, even though Keylonic science does say it is the presupposition that everything is based on. All of this advanced stuff is based on the law of one. And then they introduce it mostly through history of why we don't know this anymore, that in ancient civilizations from the past, which we know mythologically like Atlantis and Lemuria, the idea of the law of one was every society had it. It's what societal models were based on. And slowly over the time, it was removed on purpose. So here's a quote on this.
To cause chaos and fear and control.
Yeah. There's 2 major things, the law of one and the actual science of ascension, which is an energy reality and part of our divine birthright as human beings. That knowledge was taken away. Well, why was that? Because the science of ascension was withheld from the masses, but the promise of ascension was used to manipulate people into supporting and obeying the authorities who claimed that ascension could be accomplished only through blind belief and adherence to their politically motivated creeds.
Oh, yeah. Like only if you believe this and do this and say this and act this way can you get to, to go to heaven.
Yep. And if knowledge is removed, much like the original Templar teachings became distorted with lies and elitist, dualistic perceptions of reality, and that perception has formed the underlying belief base upon which culture has been organized and is still apparent within most cultures of present-day Earth. The original Templar creed taught unity consciousness of love, cooperation, and respect toward all other life forms. It did not appoint some groups as being godly and others as evil. It taught of the necessary for equality between peoples and genders and the need to heal and integrate all aspects of society. It did not teach that God was a male authority figure who passed judgment on sinful, inferior humans. It did not teach that the male gender was formed in the image of God and the female was a lesser part extracted from the godly male to hold a position of subservience. The original Templar creed did not endorse the exploitation of plant, animal, and mineral kingdoms for the purpose of personal sustenance and materialistic gain. It taught respect and reverence for all life. It did not teach of good and evil. It taught that evil deeds were the result of ignorance to the true structure of the universe.
Oh, wow.
And that evil was cured by education through the law of one. It taught that every being in the universe was an individual face and expression of God, and that brotherhood was simply the rational result of this comprehension.
It's just the byproduct.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that amazing?
So, let me read that again. It taught that every being in the universe was an individual face and expression of God. So that's that, we're all an expression of Source. And that brotherhood was simply the rational result of this comprehension. So it's like you get along and you're kind, because you have this education and comprehension about the universe and the way it works. Wow, that's so cool.
Isn't that beautiful? Which is also very interesting to me. So this is easily the most information-dense material I've ever come across in my life. I've spent many years and gone over thousands and thousands of pages of it. And this right here is evidence to me that this idea is simple. Because out of thousands of pages of these translations, they said, okay, so let's start with number 1. Here's 3 paragraphs. That's all you need.
That's all
Next
you
step.
need. Like, yeah, just carry. You can print it out, put it in your wallet, and that's like carry it with you for your life. And I'll reference again Jin Shin Jitsu, which is just basically a model and how I understand the world best is because it resonates with me. But it's the same thing. It's described as complicatedly simple, where it can be as simple as just holding your finger to harmonize in ki or life energy in your body to help fix an attitude of fear, or to help asthma, or whatever it is, whether it's an emotional, physical, or spiritual project. It can be that simple, just having the knowledge of like, oh, if I know what finger to hold, this will help that. But in order to know why it helps is where it gets complicated, and it goes into all this different stuff. Anyway, so it's similar. But
I really love your perspective and understanding of this too, because I often struggle to articulate this to other people when base assumptions, like there's information that was lost from the past, is a very controversial idea for some people. Considering ETs or fallen angelics or guardian angelic races, or that humans are angels. I don't know if we even discussed this for the last one, but much like the definition of a miracle, I love the definition of spiritual also means non-manifest. And the definition of angel or angelic, like the human angelic imprint, angel means a multidimensional being.
Yeah, so we're changing these what's the word?
Or being
loaded
precise.
words.
Being precise with it.
Yeah, being precise with it, and also it's an angel is not necessarily biblical. Like an angel it's all encompassing. Yeah, I love that.
And it is also a metaphor. So even much like there's a lot of information that's trickled through and percolating throughout everyone's mind throughout the whole globe, right, over time. And this is why, if building on this, the KS material can reference, the law of one, if you want to look into that more. And for example, a morphogenetic field is a very recent idea that's credited to a scientist called Rupert Sheldrake. And he did all these experiments like, can a pigeon fly home if you cut its ability to smell off, or its ability to see, or take out a pigeon with no senses can still somehow navigate on a migration pattern.
Oh, wow.
And so he attributes all these things as evidence of that morphogenetic fields exist and they're connected. Another one.
Can you define morphogenetic field so we all have this?
Sure. We can go back. We touched on this in the Keylonic Science introduction, and this is the base of Partakai units, how they polarize, and then they structure to Partakai grids. They structure to form chelons, which group to form chelon codes, and chelon codes form a morphogenetic field, which is the base structure of your spirit body as it manifests.
Oh, yeah, your spirit body, the anatomy of your spirit body, right?
And so very much in the same way that, like, this is standing on the shoulders of giants in the past, much like science always does, is that what Rupert Sheldrake, the books that he wrote about this over the past 20 years, he's kind of considered a pariah to the modern scientific community, because they're like, he's just chasing a dream, and he's explaining it in 3D. When he's actually talking about something, I don't know if he understands how big the concept is. So there are resources out there, and I recommend that anyone look into these. But the Keylonic Science resource, I bring up morphogenetic fields as an example because they use that term because that's in our collective consciousness as a concept. They can provide more precision and more articulation to give it more grounded meaning and take a lot of the magical, the mystery out of it, really, which is helpful for the comprehension.
Right, it is. And a lot of times I feel that people have doubt and suspicion whether something is true. They're using their own discernment based on can you cross-reference this? Does this have double-blind, published studies.
Right.
And that's from the 3D science perspective, right? We are like at the tip of the iceberg, and the rest of the iceberg is you can't see it.
Yeah.
Can't even
It might go down to the base of the ocean and to the other side of the world. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have another one here too, because this information is really nice, but to be able to have a practical means to ground it is also important too.
It's hard to think about me being a part of everything. Like, why it's hard to like comprehend, but I can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I might not be able to explain it in words, but I can feel it, and I have felt it if I'm in sync with whatever. Usually it's in nature. If I close my eyes and stick my hand in a river, it's this electric knowing that we're all part of this meshwork. All energies are just like, I feel, And a lot of times when I'll do like guided meditations or something, imagine yourself going into the water and feeling it on your toes, and like, is it warm? Is it cold? Instantly, I'm like, I'm not in the water, I am the water. Like, it just goes there automatically, where you're like, oh no, I am the air.
You know what just occurred to me when you were saying that earlier is that, and also the Jinshin, you said it's simply or complexive.
It's complicatedly
simple.
Yeah.
Why is it complicatedly simple? It's because we're not taught the law of one. So much like Yoda would say, you have to unlearn what you have learned. So it's releasing those ideas of separation and duality that it is basically, in my opinion, a poison in our society that's existed for a long time.
It is.
And if we can release that, it leads to a direct new experience. But the complex part is learning the things that are actually simple.
Yeah. Learning the things that are simple. And in Jinshin, the things I mentioned this earlier, your physical body, your emotions, which is just energy in motion, your spiritual body, this is how you feel connected to source and the world around you. Those are all related and rely on each other to flow in harmony. So if you have a physical project, like say you fell as a kid and like broke your tailbone or something, that is now a project to work on, and it can affect your emotional body and your spiritual body. And Jinshin works with all of that to be able to heal everything from holistically.
Yeah.
Basically is that word. Holistic.
Wow, this is perfect, because I do have this. This is from the Codes of Behavior, also referred to the ANRs, or the 12 Attitudes and Responsibilities of Mastery, as they come from the Keylonic Science paradigm, which is really some of the most practical, here's what to do with it, kind of chunks of information. I think that it's probably going to take too much time to go over all 12 attitudes, but we can do that. Because it's so closely related, I want to bring up just the introduction here. So this is called the Codes of Behavior. Each time we start to work with our attitude, we deal with something that affects the physical, something that affects the emotional, and something that affects the mental.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, not funny, but it's perfect.
It's exactly what you were saying. So you will always have the physical, emotional, and mental level to bring harmony with each other. Bringing these into harmonious balance raises our attitude to the next level of consciousness.
That's so funny, because in Jinshin, the attitudes to harmonize are worry, fear, anger, sadness, and pretense. But they're all attitudes. They're all they're a way of living. They're your lifestyle that can harmonize, and then the opposite of that, when they are in harmony, is happiness and contentment.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful.
Peace, harmony, yeah, love it.
The attitudes of mastery are concepts the mental body can use to choose, to look at, to think about, and to try to feel what it might be to look at life that way. Much like the law of one, right?
Wow.
The attitudes of mastery are filters you can consciously choose, instead of the ones that are culturally programmed in.
Unlearning.
Most of the filters we choose to look at the world through are subconscious. However, we can choose our filters. It may take a while to integrate what the attitudes really mean and the feelings associated with them, feelings that will heal aspects of the shadow body and get the mind to a space where it understands that we do not have to get caught in certain reaction patterns. We have a choice in any situation. We can act or we can react. When we react, somebody else or something else is controlling our power. We're just giving a knee-jerk reaction to whatever somebody else decided to create. Remember that your consciousness is the camera and you can change the filters. Beliefs are ideas. Ideas turn into sound patterns of electromagnetic light and sound when they are in the body. If your beliefs and the things that you choose to honor with your mind are not in divine alignment as far as what creates harmony and peace, it will literally create blockages in your bioenergetic field that block the ability of the higher levels to integrate.
Yeah, that's basically Jinshin, like blockages in your body or prevent like if energy flows like a river and then there's like some beavers make a dam.
Yeah,
some beavers. Like, come on. it will find a way to go around, or it will start to stagnate, and stagnation equals pain and illness and disease and disharmony, like sickness and disease, and that's just disharmony in your body's life energy. And its life energy is not it's energy. It's not just physical. It's not physical.
That reminds me of another one of my favorite terms from this work as well. It's called divine right order. And what it means is coherent, energetic organization. Whereas the opposite, chaos, would be incoherent, energetic disorganization.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I like that.
Here, I'm going to read this last one to the codes of behavior, if anything, for me.
Okay.
Because I had a rough day recently. And this is a great reminder for myself as well.
Go.
Most of us are looking at the world through our shadow, and we do not even know what is happening. We just feel it. That's where we get the fear feeling, the worry feelings, and the anger feelings. Also where we get the days when we're absolutely manic. Just wired, the frequencies are working. You feel good that day. Then when you get the opposite, you get into depression. All of these things are the play between the energies of light and the shadow with each person. The shadow does not use any of these attitudes as filters. It uses fear, lack, and it feels it has to take in order to survive because it is afraid of not surviving at the core of its being.
Wow.
So yeah, that's an intro. I think perhaps another time we can do attitudes and responsibilities of mastery. I'll put a screenshot up here if someone wants to read them, because they are pretty self-explanatory. But just as a practical piece of information to kind of supplement this discussion, I felt that was really worth sharing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the separateness that we all feel alone, and we feel, that we have enemies, somebody who's not in our same position, or
or even the perception of that enemies exist.
Yeah, the perception.
It's a choice.
The energies.
Same.
Yeah, basically the same. That enemies exist, and then this feeling, and we've all been both places. I feel.
Yeah.
There's always, especially on those good days, you're talking about, and things are in sync, or the divine right order. There's synchronicities everywhere when you're having these elevated emotions, and then it can be the opposite the next day. It's just like everything kind of crumbles.
Yeah. It depends if the perception is that, am I happening to the universe, or is the universe happening to me?
Yep.
And even from a victim mode that it's happening to me, I can still experience being a victim when something good happens because I don't believe it was under my control. Like, I won the lottery, or, I found a penny on the ground. Yay, lucky me.
Yeah.
I can temporarily choose to feel happiness without accepting responsibility for it.
Yeah, and it's just luck.
Yeah.
Coincidence.
Right, because what does luck imply? I don't know how to recreate it. It was random chance, and the consistency of that happening again is 0 to 0 compared to whatever I want to believe.
Yeah, I think a lot of this goes into manifestation, where if we are all interconnected and we do put out to the universe what we want to receive, and that's just really living in appreciation and gratitude, and feeling the feelings we want to feel, and imagine that we have it right now. And then things start to happen in your life, and some of them you don't even realize until after the fact. Like, oh, I totally did that like 5 years ago, and I didn't even recognize that I was like manifesting like instantaneously.
Here's a couple definitions from Keylonic science. So gratitude is appreciating the all oneness and knowing your aliveness.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that so
gratitude.
Precise? Love is recognition of the truth of the all oneness.
Oh.
Joy is choosing to be the embodied all oneness.
Yep.
Like, these are so simple, but without the law of one, it looks silly. If I remember showing this to someone in the past before bringing up the law of one, and they're like, what's all oneness? It doesn't even make sense.
All oneness.
This new age crap out of here. You know?
What is this? Who are you, Dr. Bronner? Get out of here.
Exactly. Dr. Bronner.
Oh, wait. Dr. Bronner has law of one on his
Of course,
thickness.
yeah.
I always thought, like, I remember when Effie and I lived together, and she had, like, Dr. Bronner soap, and I was like, what is this cult?
I know, yeah.
But that's me coming from, I don't know anything about it, so I was fearful, and then I judged it, right?
Yeah.
But, like, yeah.
I was too. I remember reading of Dr. Bronner's bottle of soap, maybe as a teenager, and it was sitting, I was on the toilet, and I needed reading material, so I was like, what is this batshit crazy ranting on this? Is this soap? What is this? But now it's the only soap I use. I love
I know.
it.
That's great. I mean, whatever he wants to put on his soap, like, it's good soap.
Good soap.
And, hey.
Yeah.
I don't have to, like, believe everything, or, you know, it's, it can just be simple. Just allow him to express himself and sell his soap.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting, too, that I notice, you know, as time has gone on and as I'm growing, that most people, if they don't have a very strict spiritual set of ideas, and they just kind of accept the idea, naturally the law of one is the thing that they accept. You know, whatever their conceptualization of God is, it's the source of stuff. And the law of one just kind of naturally is a part of some people's awareness. They don't even need the specific definition.
That's
you know?
that's what I feel when I learned about it and you explained what it was. I'm like, yeah, duh.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I've felt for, you know, a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the request from another friend of mine, he said he would really love to see a law of one curriculum.
Oh, right.
And I was like, well, no, I guess that's the channeled books if you want to consider them. But also, how much can you rely on a channeled set of information?
Right.
Mistakes could happen. It may not be 100%
translations,
accurate.
you know, mistranslations could happen. I think instead of a curriculum, it's a very simple set of practices. And if these practices are in your daily life, then that's where things start happening, and you start understanding by way of practicing it, and you're like living the school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You are embodying
You're
it.
embodying the school. Yeah. Yeah, we can learn a different way. We don't have to, you know, pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to university to learn how to be grateful and to love, which is the recognition of the truth of the all oneness.
Yeah, it's just accepting it. Really,
yeah, just accept it.
Yeah.
I love it. Engaged detachment, the definition is permitting the all oneness to be without assigning critique, condemnation, or value judgment, understanding that isness and the validating the all oneness. And that's like loving detachment that Effie was talking about.
Which is not judging the experience.
Yeah,
and accepting it immediately.
Yeah, just allowing it to, like, having a perspective of curiosity rather than judgment has really helped me shift and being able to love other people, especially the people that trigger me.
Yeah.
You know, and just like, okay, just let it go. Hands are off. I'm lovingly detached. And detachment is not the psychological term where you're just like, you know,
it's detached from the result.
Yeah, right. So it's the kind of the Buddhist unattachment, detachment, where you just allow things to unfold as they may.
Yeah, there you go. That kind of reminds me too. This manifests in a lot of recovery programs as well.
Yep.
The 3 A's.
Yep.
if I want to change something, I must acknowledge what's happening.
Acknowledgement or awareness. Yeah.
Or awareness, yeah, both same thing. And then I must accept that this is happening. Yeah, otherwise, I'm going to be in resistance. No, this can't happen. And after I acknowledge and I accept, then I can take action.
Yep.
Because I changed the way I thought about it.
Oh, and it's a miracle because your perspective changed.
Yes, and I did it on purpose. So it's a double miracle.
Yeah, double miracle because you consciously made that change, because we get to choose what we think. We get to choose where our awareness goes. And yeah, so good.
I'm feeling pretty good here.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to cover? I kind of feel like doing these short and sweet. If someone wants to dive back into the Chelonic Science introduction.
Yeah, and if we get another question, like if somebody's like, oh, can we do like the 12th attitude, or, if they have another concept.
I intend to expand on this a little more in our next one, and I'll leave these on there so people can see them if they want to return. But
but it is simple, and no wonder they only had like 3 pages of this. It's just like, okay, this is the concept, this and the practice, and then we can move on.
And then also, it's very obvious that it's presupposed in all the rest of the thousands of pages of translations, because it's spoken from that stage of consciousness. It's shared from that layer where, of course, that's true. We're not even going to bring it up anymore.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Of course it's true.
Yeah. Kind of in the same way that, like our relationship as brother and sister, there's never a moment that goes by where I'm like, oh, does Smee not like me? Like I would never even think of that. It's presupposed that we're brother and sister in our family, that we all love each other.
Or you've never been like, oh, she's not my sister. Like, no, you can't undo that. It's
yeah. So any of our communication will be reflective of that. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. It's good. Well, yeah, I feel good.
Yeah, I feel complete. Okay. Well, what is today? Today is April 8th, 2022. His birthday recording. So, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will be back another day.
Hey, love you.
Love you.